Hi, welcome back to Chase. That's me being in the chair, the classic capsule. I love sitting in here after reviewing Sean's very expert research. Okay, after reviewing Sean's very stop it, Sean. Hi, I'm Chase. Welcome to Classic Capsule. As you know, every so often I take a chance to sit in Sean's chair, to give a little afterword or after edition. And Superman being one of my favorite characters, I was listening intently to see if there's anything I could possibly add to the well delivered research. One, he's right about the curse. And when he talked about Kirk Alyn, he only mentioned about how Kirk Alyn actually appeared as Lois Lane's father on that train sequence with Noel Neill in Superman the movie. Now, actually, I didn't know that because I didn't see the behind the scenes or whatever, those extra minutes, and so that's really good to hear. But I did know that Kirk Alyn supposedly committed suicide in this particular instance, where George Reeves in his attempt was about, am I bulletproof? This one was supposedly Kirk Alyn jumped to his death. Did he believe he could fly? Especially after making that movie. I mean, unfortunately, his career, as Sean already has said, was always tied to Superman, and then that downward spiral, maybe even appearing in the Superman movie, was still something that can show a person, the impact and of their lives, or the non-impact in this case. What I also wanted to say was about Superman 2. So Sean didn't mention too much about Richard Donner being the chosen director of this film. His research was great all around it, but what I just want to further allude to is that this was one film that was split into two. And what happened is that so even though we got to see Marlon Brando as Jor-El and the Kryptonians being sent away to the Phantom Zone, 2 was always going to be that the 3 Kryptonians escape, and the grown-up Kal-El will have to deal with them. But what had happened is that the tension between the Solkans and Richard Donner had gotten so intense that he was fired. Now, we all consider this a classic film, but when we find out behind the scenes, it's just really amazing about how things still managed to come together. And what they did was they had hired the AD, Richard Lester, to take over. And so, now they had all the disputes about Superman, Christopher Reeve, all of that, but they had to keep everything going. Gene Hackman, as he said, hated the film, had to keep everything going. So it was kind of like the second half of the film was mostly in the hands of incompetence of this new director, Richard Lester. Now, what we were actually attributed to several years ago was the Richard Donner cut. This is kind of like why people talk about the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. Is that because obviously, things are in plan, things, they have projections, like they do storyboards and everything else like that. So what was Superman 2 actually supposed to be? Because they had to redo the beginning, they had to redo the ending and all that other kind of stuff. So we came out with the Richard Donner cut, which he was able to go back into the studio with all the footage that was shot, and then kind of work his way around the footage that wasn't his, but still tell his story. And I think one of the things was, I wish I would have known all the stories. I know Sean could have figured this out, but the kiss wasn't the way it was supposed to end. The whole magic kiss, I forget everything. And everything. But either way, so once that was done, and the Travesty of 2 was released to us, they went to work on the third film, which was called Miracle Monday. Now, what happened was that they were like, yeah, listen, Margot Kidder, not really working out here, right? there was problems with her as well. So like what they decided to do was, look, Lois Lane is not Superman's only girl. There's also Lana Lang, you know, his childhood sweetheart and everything like that, who was beautifully portrayed by Annette O'Toole. Right? So she was brought in to be the love interest in Superman 3, which I thought is a very important point to be made. But also, too, is that they wanted to show the kind of like Gemini effect, you know, where they wanted evil Superman versus good Superman. And we had a fantastic sequence where Superman fights himself, you know, and everything with Miracle Monday. We also, you know, had did he or did he not have sex? You know, sequence, you know, with Pamela Stevenson, gorgeous woman in that movie. So, like, I love it when she's sitting on the roof. She's like, hey, baby. He's like, I don't know you. She's like, yeah, great. You know, even as a kid, I knew what that meant. So, but, you know, Richard Pryor, as Sean says, was great in comic relief. He wasn't. He was at the end of his rope by this time, you know. So was he really suffering from the Superman curse? You know, he was on a downward spiral at this point, you know. And the humor in the film, maybe because it had that crushing Disney effect of like, it has to be clean, it has to be clean, it has to be clean. So a lot of his jokes fell really hugely flat. Now also, this is the beginning of digital technology. You got to remember, this is like around what, 1980 or so? Sean, you still here? 1983. Thank you, Sean. It's 83. So this is like the chosen digital effect at this time was bit matrix kind of. You know, like if you've ever had those Game Boys and stuff like that, and there's like all these block versions of a human person. So that they went to this whole digital thing where Superman was supposed to go through the tunnels of this mountain, and where Robert Vaughn and his evil sister and a giant robot was trying to take him out, and they cut to the cartoon of the dot matrix. It was like watching a Game Boy video game. It was terrible, horrible. Wow. It's kind of like digital had a very slow start into our lives and films and everything. But I just wanted to mention that. But then also too is that Superman 4, Quest for Peace. So, Lana Lang didn't work out. Lois Lane came back, but then they said, let's give him another love interest. I can't remember who was played by that girl. I can't remember her name, actually. You know what I mean? The girl in that movie. But, you know, a new character created just for the movie, just so that way Lois could kind of like be there as a reporter as Superman makes his claim that I'm going to get rid of the world of all its nuclear weapons. But it also is like going back to the beginning of Adam Man versus Superman, because it was Superman versus the Atomic Man. Get it? Ta-ta-ta-ta. Mark Pillow. The mullet. The mullet of evil. Right? With the long nails, man. I have long nails. What are you trying to say? You know? The fight was not bad, even though it was on the moon and it looked cheesy as crack. You know, it's kind of like the moon landing. You know? You know what I mean? But yeah, okay, Sean, forget you. But anyway, the quest for peace, as he puts all the nuclear warheads in like this, like you know, what do you call those things? Those like those nets, like a fish net, and threw it into space. This is when we all vomited at the end of Superman. You know, we're like, okay, it's not just the death of Chris Reeve, but it's the death of everything. But you've only kind of like, you know, danced a little bit with Brandon Routh. I happen to like Brandon Routh. Superman Returns. Now, reason why I wanted to jump in there was because thankfully we got Superman Returns and we didn't get Superman Flyby, written by Kevin Smith, and going to be produced by J.J. Abrams. Because that would have been hell. Because Kevin Smith tells that story a lot about the John Peters producer saying, yeah, so can Superman, like, you know, fight a giant spider? You know? No, he cannot. You know? Well, you know what? Brainiac to be the villain and all that other kind of stuff. But he brings out a giant spider. And so that would have been Superman Flyby, and that would have been hell. And we already had Superman Quest for Peace. So for somebody to say, look, Donner did a fantastic job. It was a shame that he was fired. So let's just show what his Superman would have been like if Superman had sex with Lois and produced a kid. That's the idea of Superman Returns. Now, when everybody laughed at this, because they really laughed at the Kryptonite Mountain and what's his face as Lex Luthor, Kevin Spacey, that was laughable. But the idea of Superman having a kid with Lois is now canon, because that's how it is in the comics. Superman and Lois have a kid, Jonathan Kent, and he's the little Superman, and he's like he's got a series and everything. So I'm just letting you know, too early for his time. Too early for his time. So now when you talk about Henry Cavill, not Cable, but Henry Cavill, I love him. Gorgeous. He definitely needs to do Man of Steel 2. He's not sitting there waiting for, what you call it, Mission Impossible Bond. No, he's not getting that job. He's taking another job. He is now playing The Witcher 3. What's his name? Graythor or something like that? He's got long white hair and he does magic. The series is coming out on Netflix. Look for it. That's what Henry Cavill is doing right now. He is still waiting for that call. Will he get it? I mean, you know, we know that Battison, you know, has gotten Batman. You know, the kid from, you know, Twilight, and so, which he's kind of young for Cavill. You know, so we don't know. Will we ever get Man of Steel 2? We all want it. We all crave it. We all think that Cavill deserves it. But that's what I wanted to talk about, the Superman Legends, still in my 2 cents. Hopefully you found them interesting to consider as an epilogue. So that was my take on Superman. You know, just only adding, as we do here in the after edition of the Classic Capsule with Sean McKiernan, and this is my take on Superman. Thank you very much.